I'm Joni Patry, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I want to talk about the 5th house in astrology. The 5th house is my favorite house of the horoscope because it is the house of astrology. Why? Because the 5th house deals with the ability to give advice, advisors. And in ancient times, the astrologers were the advisors to the kings. And this plays out where this is the house for many things, but particularly astrology. It deals with the ability to predict the future, so therefore astrology. It is the house of creativity. It is what and how we express ourselves. The need to express ourselves, this comes through the 5th house. The 5th house is creativity. So what are the things that we create in this world? One is children. So it is the house of children. Also, the 5th house deals with anything that lives beyond us. Our children, our creations, our artwork, our designs, anything that follows our demise. So the 5th house is also the house of fun. It's the house of sports, entertainment, self-expression. It's actually the house of writing books because it is the 3rd house from the 3rd house, which the 3rd house is communication. So therefore, it's the expression and our communications, our creativity. It's also known as the house of intelligence. So people that have really strong planets here, particularly Mars, because Mars is the planet of intelligence, can be very, very smart. They like to know how things operate, how things, the mechanics behind things, how things work. This is the understanding of the 5th house. Whereas the 4th house can be our memory and memorizing thing. The 5th house is really understanding the mechanics behind something, how it works. It is a very spiritual house. It is called the house of Puvapunya, which means past life good credit that is due to us in this lifetime. So I love that. And what could past life credit that's due to us in this lifetime be about? Well, it's about talent. People come into this world with a specific talent. Where does that talent originate from if it wasn't from a past life, something you developed in your past life? And here you are, you have this specific talent or gift in this lifetime, and that is revealed through the 5th house. It's also known as the house of speculation. So people that are really good in the stock market and do very well financially in such a way have strong planets in the 5th house. So the 5th house is also the heart. We consider the 4th house deals with the heart, but so does the 5th house. How does that work? Because there's different chambers in the heart. One that pulls the blood into the heart and one that throws the blood out into your bloodstream, into your body. This is the 5th house because the 4th house is the receptive force, such as the moon, whereas the 5th house is the force of putting out there. One is receiving, one is giving. So I consider the 5th house the house of giving love, whereas the 4th house is receiving love because it deals with these different chambers of the heart, one that's receiving blood and one that's putting out there. So the 4th and the 5th house both rule the heart. Therefore, the 5th house also rules love and romance. When you meet someone, when you fall in love, the courtship, this is also a variable of the 5th house. It's the opening of the heart energy. And those of you that have children, there is nothing that opens your heart energy to unconditional love more than the 5th house, more than children. And that's, you know, it's a pretty powerful house. It is the 9th house from the 9th house. So it has a vast understanding of spirituality and truth as well. So let's go over a few of the planets if you have certain planets in the 5th house. And remember, if there are no planets in any of these houses, you're always going to be looking at where the transiting planets, you will have transits going through that house at some point throughout your life. And also, it's the planet that rules your 5th house, where it goes, that can reflect more about these 5th house values. Let's start with the sun. If you have the sun in the 5th house, probably your first child will be a boy. I've seen this many times. I have my sun in the 5th house and I have 3 sons. So you see, the 5th house with children can reflect your children as you have planets in the 5th house. Okay. The sun in the 5th house can be very vital, very giving, very loving. That's that warmth, the energy of the sun. The moon in the 5th house can represent female children. But I have noticed this isn't always the case, but people that have the moon in the 5th house are highly intelligent, very astute, strong minds, very appreciative. But sometimes they only have one child. They will have children, but usually it's one. Now, I've seen many times more than one, but I've seen this more times than not. Very interesting. If you have Mercury in the 5th house, this gives great intelligence, great understanding, and great creativity. And remember, any planet in the 5th house will give great creativity and great understanding of the mind. Okay, Mercury in the 5th, highly intellectual and funny. They're always wanting to learn and expand their wisdom, expand their knowledge. If you have Venus in the 5th house, you're an artist. You create things. You have such a drive for self-expression. And there's a probability of children, because Venus is that which creates. All right? In the 5th house, this will create children. And if you have Jupiter in the 5th house, sometimes they say when the Karaka for children, which is Jupiter, is in the 5th house, it can prevent someone from having children. But I have seen people with Jupiter in the 5th house have children, so sometimes that logic doesn't always work. But Jupiter in the 5th house makes high degree of intelligence. Once again, great with investments in the stock market, great with giving advice to people, being an advisor in an advisory position, and a love of sports and entertainment. Self-expression is very strong. If you have Mars in the 5th house, high degree of intelligence. This is like the mark of an engineer many times, because they like to understand how things operate. And Mercury, Mars in the 5th house would be incredible with mathematics, okay? Because they like to understand the mechanics behind things. If you have Saturn in the 5th house, sometimes that can delay children. Not always will it cancel children like people may believe, but it maybe means that you have children later. Saturn in the 5th can make you very organized, determined, directed, powerful, good karmic blessings from previous lifetimes. Okay. If you have Uranus in the 5th house, you're an inventor, you're genius, you're sudden windfalls, especially if you deal with the stock market. If you have Neptune in the 5th house, you're a mystic. You're always thinking about the spiritual realms and why are we here, and miracles and mysticism. Neptune in the 5th house can be extraordinarily creative, artistic, musical in many senses. If you have Pluto in the 5th house, sometimes this can make your mind want to gravitate to issues of control, where you have the need to feel like if you're not in control of the situation, you feel like you can't get a grasp on things. So it's like the mind feels like it has to control things when Pluto's in the 5th house. If you have Rahu in the 5th house, this can sometimes mean that your mind is obsessive compulsive in the way you think. When you think about things, you can't get it out of your head. You know it's crazy, but you just keep repeating a thought. But Rahu in the 5th, don't kid yourself, can be extraordinarily intelligent and thinking way beyond the limits of what others may imagine. This is Rahu in the 5th. Very creative, very dynamic. Ketu in the 5th. Interesting, but this doesn't always prevent children. Sometimes it does prevent children, but many times it represents wherever Ketu is, you feel like there's something always missing. So therefore, you're always trying to fill an emptiness. You can't do enough for your children. You're always on top of them, always worrying about where they are, what they're doing, and how you can better be a parent. This is Ketu in the 5th house, always putting more energy into that area. Highly creative, very smart, brilliant, genius. Mars with Ketu can be incredibly intelligent, a burning desire to understand things better, the deeper essence of what life is all about. So with that, I'd like to close. And remember, if you're interested in learning astrology, go to my university, which is universityofvedicastrology.com. This is an extensive certification course, and if you need more information on my work, you can go to my website, which is galacticcenter.org. Thank you.